Welcome to this episode of The Good, The Bad and The Odd One Out with your host Mark. It's been a while since I've done one of these, mainly because I've been really enjoying our central film watching thing we're doing with the main podcast, where we're doing sets of films, and we've been going through Nightmare on Elm Street, and we've just done Jurassic Park, and we'll be moving on to Friday the 13th. Really digging those, and those are the sort of things I used to do in The Odd One Out, but now Sam's watching them with me, we're going to do them on the main podcast. So I've cut these back. However, I wanted to do a follow-up to one I've already done, which was an Odd One Out, where I talked about the first 10 episodes of Season 1 of Star Trek, the original series. Now I'm going to be talking about the next 10 episodes, so episodes 11 to 20. Episode 11 and 12 is The Menagerie Part 1 and 2, which was a rehacked version of the original pilot, which starred Jeffrey Hunter, which was called The Cage. The Menagerie was like a reworking of that, using quite a bit of footage from that pilot, reworked into a more a central plot, where basically Spock is trying to help the crippled Pike, and he's kind of doing things that are basically sedition or treason. It's a chopped up version of the pilot. The pilot was okay. This one's padded out, regurgitated. We do see a bit of the number one before she became Nurse Chapel. The stuff with Pike I really like. I thought there was some really good stuff in it. Of course, there's the iconic shot of the green slave girl. Everyone knows that from Star Trek. But the guy they got in the chair to play Captain Pike didn't really look like Jeffrey Hunter at all. I mean, it was passable because he was like badly damaged, but it didn't look like him. I really like the big-headed aliens in the pilot and in this, so I think that works really well. This old lady's done up, and I remember as a kid not knowing. They just looked really realistic to me, but it's pretty good makeup, that. I do prefer the original pilot, and it's got a much better narrative to it. This feels a bit... it meanders a bit. The framing device is quite tedious, I find it, and it's kind of a very trivial resolution to Spock's mutiny. In terms of where I put it in the ranking of things, it's better than some of the more slow episodes, like Where No Man Has Gone Before. But as a pair, but it's a bit overlong, really. It doesn't really stretch to 2 episodes. This, but I can see they would no way to be able to get all this into one episode. I don't think. So it was okay. Pretty decent, I'd say. So we go on to episode 13, which was... Give me a second. I am... Conscience of the King. Now this is an interesting one. It's about Kirk being called to a planet where they think a man who was responsible for the mass slaughter of lots of innocents is basically... He's a runaway war criminal, and they think he may be this actor on this trip. In fact, a colleague of Kirk who was one of the few people to have witnessed this man directly and seen a picture of him, and apparently there's no photograph or very little photographic evidence of this man, and Kirk isn't sure. Now, I see this as a parable about... it's a sci-fi reflection of Nazis on the run. We've got to remember this was made mid-60s. Nazis on the run was still a significant thing then. I mean, we even get them today, and we're talking 50 years later. Old men. And quite rightly, of course. They cannot be let off. If they can get caught, they should get caught. But this is a reflection on that. It's not bad. I kind of like some of the interesting detective stuff with Spock. I like the fact O'Reilly reappears, and he's pretty good in this. I think his scenes, which are quite admirable, were written for a different character, but I realised O'Reilly kind of fit in the mould, so they worked him in. And it's a shame. I would like to have seen more of O'Reilly, actually. I think he was a good character, and it would have been nice for him to become a bit more of a permanent member of staff, actually, considering some of the others they got in here and there. The episode's a little tedious and melodramatic, and the twist seems really obvious. There is a twist, it's really obvious, but having said that, I have seen this episode several times, so I'm not entirely sure. This is the first time also we get Star Trek flirting with Shakespearean motifs. The Conscience of the King is from, I think, Macbeth, and it's our start of Star Trek's long-running fascination with all things Shakespeare. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's pretty good. It was decent enough, I guess. Having said that, I think this is probably the worst one I've seen of all of them so far, which I think is more a reflection on the quality of the series, actually, than this particular episode. It's a really, really great series so far. I think it's exceptionally good. I'm trying to think of another series which starts so strongly. Maybe Firefly is maybe one. There's probably other Twin Peaks is an obvious one. But man, Star Trek is really, really quite good. Talking of which, we get on to our next one, which I think is episode 14, which is Balance of Terror. Now, this is a tip-top episode. First appearance of Mark Leonard here, not as Sarek, who, went on to play Sarek as Spock's father, but in this, he's a Romulan commander. He really shows his stuff here. I really like Mark Leonard. I think he's tip-top as a Star Trek character. And he's also in the Planet of the Apes TV series, but heavily made up as Urko, the guerrilla commander, so you wouldn't know it's him. Does a really good job in that, though, having said that. But I think he's a really good actor and really solid for this franchise. There's a bit of filler which kind of feels silly, which concerns a wedding and a couple. And there's this weird little on the bridge conflict about a guy who's lost some of his family have been lost to Vulcans, or I can't remember now. I think it's not recent, but he's got a grudge, and he antagonises Spock because, of course, Vulcans and Romulans look the same, and the fact that Vulcans and Romulans kind of look the same, I think it's a really interesting dynamic. I think it's a really good idea. It's probably done for expediency, but it really works well as an idea. Great episode, this. Captains trying to outthink each other, working out how to succeed and handle it. They're not thorough warmongers, they're trying to be clever. I think it's a good introduction for Romulans. And the wedding thing's the only weak point of this whole, the couple is the only weak point in the whole episode. Of course, it foreshadows the kind of submarine commander aspect of Wrath of Khan too. Why not? It's a great one. This was also Yeoman Rand's last appearance in production order, at least. I think she does appear in terms of output order again, but this was her actual last appearance in terms of the making. I'd have to put this... I don't know. I really, really like The Naked Time. I think that's my favourite so far. Corbomite Manoeuvre's number 2, so I put this third. I think it's a little better than, say, The Enemy Within. Enemy Within I really like, but I think this one's better. In terms of the really good one so far, I'd say Naked Time, Corbomite Manoeuvre, Balance of Terror, Enemy Within, Miri, and Charlie X are the real classics so far. And the rest of them, I don't think there's a weak one. Actually, I think they're all pretty decent. There's a great line in this by the actress that just made me laugh when I watched it, which is, she said, "This ship, all the power surging and throbbing, yet under control. Are you like that, Captain?" Oh, come on! Wow! Why are they trying to get away with that? Yes, it was kind of cool. But like I say, the weak point is probably the wedding. Okay, that leads us on to, I think, number 15. And that one is Shore Leave. Shore Leave is... it's a goofy one. It's an iconic episode because everyone remembers it. But, we got the White Rabbit and Alice appearing. There's also quite a lot of stock footage of, I think, fighter aeroplanes, and I thought it was stock footage of a tiger when I remember him back in it, but it looks like it's kind of integrated. They've actually got a tiger from somewhere. There's like Don Juan, we've got samurais, knights, an old Kirk Flame who pops up who hasn't aged a day. I like the fact he says to her, I mean, what are they, 35 when they were played this? She pops up and she looks the same as him pretty much. And he says to her, "You haven't aged a day in 15 years, which means she must have looked about 35 when she was 20, which kind of made me laugh. There's also this weird ongoing fight with some Irish fellow and Kurt called an Irish fellow called Finnegan, who every time we come on, they play like Irish jig music. It's like, oh my God, this is so, it's kind of, race is too strong, but it's kind of so stereotyping someone is ridiculous, but it's kind of fun. It's fluff. It's a stupid ending, really, but I tell you something, not boring. Really, really fun episode. Kind of liked it. I personally wouldn't call it a classic, but I think the fact it's so iconic makes it so. I do like the fact McCoy turns up after he's supposed to be killed with two Vegas showgirls for the glamour, which is like very funny. It just made me laugh. What a guy. Right, that moves us on to Galileo 7. This is the one where Spock crash lands on a planet and he has to take command, and he's trying to use logic to inform all his decisions, and he's being plainly antagonised by one member of staff who's considered inhuman because he's trying to make everything logical rather than go with his guy. I don't know what the point of the guy is. This one bothers me. I mean, I like it as an episode, but the constant undermining of Spock's authority by this guy. Really, he should have given him a verbal warning that he was going to be disciplined if he kept on with that behaviour, rather than put up with it. Now, I understand Spock's more logical, so he wouldn't probably doesn't feel antagonism as such. In the same way as a human commander would. But this was ridiculous. The aliens also look quite cheap and cheerful, frankly. Not bad. The ending was a bit contrived and a bit Deus Ex Machina, but it was alright. It's definitely a memorable episode. It's the one I clearly remember watching it again. There's... It just, that whole insubordination thing just didn't ring true to me. It's just... it's interesting how it pinpoints Spock's interpersonal skill gap, maybe. Because he's very affable and fine with a lot of people if they accept him as it was. But yeah, I don't know. Also, another interesting point about this is they use the shuttlecraft in this one, which is unusual. It's also... The yeoman who appears in this one, who's called Yeoman Mears, was supposed to be Yeoman Ram, but she'd gone at this point. I don't know why they were sending yeoman to like alien worlds. I guess they got a train somehow. I'm really not sure. All right then, what moves us on to great one. Really love this episode. It's kind of hokey, but I really like it. Square of Gothos. So, Stone Cold classic, no doubt about it. It's a really good central performance. The Copen Trelane is really good. He's kind of half Liberace. There's a touch of Shatner in his performance. I detect in the part like Vegas Rat Pack. And yeah, it's an old chestnut of a sci-fi thing. An all-powerful alien being turns out to be a kid. Who's doing things because he's playing, as it were, rather than a serious, mature organism. I don't know what you call it, but it's kind of. But I really like this one. It's just also the weird animal heads on the wall make me laugh. The girl in it is also really beautiful. I don't think she was in any other episodes. Man, this is just the tip top one. Now, I thought after I watched this episode, it never occurred to me before, but this being is very Q-like, and I wondered if Q was inspired by it, and I had a bit of reading around on it, which I don't usually do. I'm not that big of a Trekkie to worry about this sort of thing, but I had a bit of a read, and I found out apparently in a non-canon book, Trelane is actually an adolescent Q, and it's part of the Q's job. All adolescents have to be mentored by a more mature Q to help them develop, because they've got such powerful skills, they need an eye that... Otherwise they might cause calamities, and there's a book where Q himself, the one we know as Q, and Trelane are paired up, so Trelane's the adolescent being, and it's kind of it's funny to think of it that way. It certainly, there were certainly scenes. Not only is the Q is he reminiscent of Q? There's actually parts of this episode which remind me of the Star Trek pilot involving Q. Dressing as a judge that happens in the Star Trek Next Generation pilot Encounter at Farpoint, where Q dresses as a judge, acts like a judge and jury. So it's interesting episode. The book concerned was called Q Squared, if anyone's interested. Okay, then we get to another... Man, like I say, they're really off-firing all cylinders. We get another iconic episode, Arena. Okay, it's the one where Kirk fights the big reptile guy. Alright, it's an episode of 3 distinct parts. We find people that have been attacked from space, or they've been attacked, basically, and devastated. An outpost. Kirk then gives chase to the craft that's chasing them, and they stumble into an area where there's other superior beings, tired of these immature, beings, irrational beings intruding on space, and they decide to resolve it by pitting Kirk against the captain of the other craft, who's a Gorn, who's this big reptile thing. Voiced by Ted Cassidy, who did a great job. Ted Cassidy actually, I think, appeared in Star Trek the original series 3 times in various guises. He was certainly in an episode called What a Little Girl's Made Of, as like a big bald alien thing, which is really good makeup. Then he voiced the Baylock creature in the Corbomite, and then he went on to voice the Gorn, which is more a hissy kind of performance. Good performance though. I like this one. It's about man trying to use his rational skill to overcome a greater, stronger opponent. Works well. The whole idea is an old crock now, but I mean it's really well done. It's really well done, and we've got to be kind of forgiving this. This was done 60 odd years ago, or whatever. They're gonna have things that are like old tropes now in there, but they must have been kind of new at the time. The lizard really frightened me as a kid, but it doesn't look great now. It looks very rubbery, but it's not bad. And this is. I haven't really talked about this. This is a red shirt actually dies in this one, which doesn't happen as frequent as you think. I think only 2 episodes of the 18 I've done so far if we had a red shirt die. And the other one was the one with Ted Cassidy, What a Little Girl's Made Of. So there isn't that much red coat death so far. Which is interesting. Again, I'm putting this in the classic arena. So we're firing on all cylinders really well, I'd say. Okay, the next one is a bit of a dip for me. I didn't mind it. Bit of a dip. It's called Tomorrow's Yesterday. It starts with like an American Air Force base and a guy flying, and he sees the Enterprise in the air. This to me I remember saying as a kid, it just seemed jarring. It seems like first the Enterprise wouldn't be in the atmosphere, and what's it do? Why has it just jumped into that? And that's just the note structure of the episode. It was originally meant to be part of a two-part story with the Naked Time, and if I can't remember if I talked about it, but at the end of the Naked Time, they go through like this weird time warp where they go back in time, and it just ends the episode. It doesn't really go into it, but apparently they were meant to time warp and go back into Earth history, and it was meant to be a 2-part with this. Anyway, they split the production, and that's how it sort of worked out. It explains why there's this weird hanging thing at the end of the Naked Time. Anyway, the pilot chasing his ship's breaking up, and they can't let him die, so they beam him up. But then they've got a time paradox. They find out he's significant in time. Not initially, but they find out one of his descendants is significant. They go back to 1969, which is when this is being made. Yeah, that's okay. It works better in, say, Star Trek 4: The Voyage Home. That kind of worked for me, but this just feels a bit contrived. The episode I find quite dull. It doesn't have much tension when Kirk's meant to be grilled to understand who he is, which should be quite serious. It's kind of hokey. Kirk doesn't care. He doesn't even look worried. And there's also like comedy shots of a guard finding himself on the Enterprise. They're just not funny. And the uniforms look a bit dopey too. They do look like they came from a Man from U.N.C.L.E. wardrobe department, not from like a military department to me. Another thing that I don't like about the episode is basically Spock works out how to time travel just off the cuff, and they do it and they never mention it again apart from Star Trek 4. It's like you figure out how to time travel and you don't use that ability. Wow, That really doesn't feel work well for it. It's all right. It just feels flat. It feels like one of those episodes where they're resting up before they go for the final set of episodes at the end of a run. To me, it's a filler. It's a bit of a filler episode. Having said that, this episode was great to see in terms of its look. Fantastic rework. Updated effects and reimagined effects. Really looks terrific. This one, really liked it. Then we come to another one, which I remembered being quite hokey, and in a way it is, in that it's like almost a room-bound episode, but I really liked it actually. Court Martial is the one where Kirk supposedly made a bad decision, killed a member of his crew, and he's standing court martial for it. When I was a kid, I really didn't like this one because it's like, it's Captain Kirk. Why would you put Captain Kirk on trial? It didn't make any sense. We know he knows what he's doing. What's about that? Now I'm older, I like it better. I thought it was a pretty good drama. It's a courtroom drama. It's not a sci-fi really. It's a courtroom drama, but it's kind of cool. Its pacings, I do like it, but I think they had to rush the ending because they just ran out of time. But the stuff that they put in before the ending is pretty good, so I'm glad it wasn't rushed. But then we have a really cut, Kirk going off finding who he's meant to sort of prove himself innocent. Then it's suddenly cut to him doing things that rescues the ship from crashing, with a monologue explaining what he's doing. That so they obviously didn't have time to do the story properly. I do like the fact the lawyer kicks off by quoting like things like the Freedom of Rights, Magna Carta, the Martian Declaration of Independence, or something like that. And also I like the fact Kirk does proper Kirk, and at the end he kisses the opposing lawyer, full on the mouth kiss in the middle of the bridge in front of everyone. What a guy, eh? What a guy. It's very funny. So those are the 20. I think of the ones we just discussed, what I'd elevate to the classic status of the ones I mentioned: Balance of Terror for sure, Squire of Gothos for sure, and Arena. So we're hitting a very, very, very solid run. And like I think I've already said, there's not been 1 week episode, in my opinion, so far. Some I'm not been that fan of, but I did enjoy them and I did watch them. Of the ones I've talked about, I do think The Tomorrow Is Yesterday is the weakest of the lot of the 20. Galileo 7 second weakest, which I still think is a decent enough episode, which gives you how I feel about the rest of them. That it's a really good run so far. So I'm looking for. I've got 9 more in this season, so I'll probably podcast about those 9 next time I do an odd one out, unless I find something that I particularly want to talk about in this sort of forum. Okay then, bye from me.
Thank you.